Welcome to WikiAfrica Hour, a monthly live broadcast airing the fresh perspectives of Africa's Wikimedians. It's a space where they share their work and knowledge and digest, through African realities, the global Wikimedia movement. WikiAfrica Hour, the voice of African Wikimedians.
I like that music.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is Isla from Wiki in Africa, and we're here at a special edition of Wiki Africa Hour for OE Week, which is happening all week and all month, wherever you are. So this special edition of Wiki Africa Hour, we have Stephane in the studio, and Stephane is going to do a demo of Kiwix and what you can expect. The reason why we came up with this idea of doing demos is because offline, by its very nature, you have to have downloaded it and done all of the installation in order to be actually able to see what you are getting in the package. So in this way, we're hoping that we can share with everyone what it looks like before you unbox it, so to speak. So welcome, Stephane. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and why are you here with Kiwix?
So my name is Stephane. I am in Switzerland, as you can see from that wonderful fake background. Kiwis are not actually a thing, but it looks cool. But the team is like all over the place. We started Kiwix a little more than 10 years ago, probably 12 years. It was a side project first, and then we realized it worked, that loads of people were asking for it. The kind of like the sparkle moment, if you want to call it, is when we had our first million download within a year. So we were like, oh, okay, that's, there's demand. It certainly wasn't expected because, Switzerland is pretty privileged. So you tend to look around yourself and be like, yeah, everyone's rich, but apparently not. So that's when we started seriously thinking about Kiwix. Initially, it was just a way for us to showcase and share Wikipedia with friends, family, and immediate surroundings. One of us being based in Mali, obviously it made more sense, but it was very Wikipedia-centric platform. And then as things evolved and we grew, we realized that it's not all about Wikipedia, and you should share the whole of the internet as much as you can, because there's so much to learn from it. So when we created Kiwix as a association, a structure, our mission statement is to bring educational content to everyone for free. So that is what we do. We scout the internet, we find educational content, broadly speaking. So obviously Wikipedia, but also TED Talks, Stack Overflow, Free Code Camp if you want to learn to code, Encyclopedia of Pokemon if you so like it. It's knowledge to some extent. What's important is that it can be shared, that it's learning, and let's roll for a short demo so I can show you the wonders of what we have.
Yeah, sure. But before that, just explain, because I think a lot of people who might come across this discussion aren't really as knowledgeable about what Kiwix is.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe just give the 101 kind of explain it to your grandmother kind of spiel.
She's dead, Isla.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I did not explain anything.
Sorry for your loss.
When she's really dead, but that's fine. I'm just, I told you I was cranky today, so.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Explain it to your 5-year-old child.
Well, this one I would say you clean up your room first, gentlemen, and then we'll talk. So what's the magic? Essentially, the way it works is that Kiwix first is a scraper. So we have a little spider, crawler, bot, whatever you name it, that goes onto website and scouts every single page on that website, and then lists them, and put them back together into a single zim, what we call zim file, much like you would have a PDF file, but this case is an exact reproduction of the target website, which you can then, download and put on your phone. And it's highly compressed, obviously, because that takes space. But you download it, you can store it on your phone, so you can have the entirety of Wikipedia on your phone, on your computer, on whatever it is you want, and then go to wherever it is you want to go. There's no internet. So obviously there's a first step where you need to download, but then you're free. like literally. And then Kiwix works as a browser. So you open your little zip file and you browse Wikipedia, and that's the point of the whole demo, is that it feels like the real thing.
Yeah. So just to unpack this a bit more, so that it's data, once it's on your device, whatever that is, it's then you don't have to, you're not streaming data, you don't have to use electricity. There's a whole kind of, it's
Well, you need to use electricity
full on
for
offline.
but you
Yeah,
can
I know.
fine.
The device, you're using the
Yeah,
device.
device is your device. It's all yours. You're not. It's not pinging any data anywhere. You can be. I mean, I'll show you a couple examples, but you literally can be anywhere on Earth and still access that data because it's yours. It's on your device.
And then to be clear, also, I mean, we both know because we work within Wikimedia, but Wikipedia is uploaded all the time and it's updated all the time. So this is a capture in that moment, yes, that's downloaded. Yes. So it's, if you go in and then you find something that you want to update, it won't reflect in your. Just to be clear to people who have no idea about it.
Yes, to some extent. So it is true that what we do are snapshots on day X, except that we run those snapshots every month. So if you download Kiwix or Wikipedia in January, and in February, you will have like an updated version.
Okay.
Lots of people, and I'm addressing that question actually right now because that's on everyone's mind. And the question is like, do you need to re-download the entirety of Wikipedia? And the answer is unfortunately yes, because the way it works, and here I'm going to be, okay, give it as an example, but like it's a bit technical, but the way it works is because it's really, really highly compressed and it needs to work on everyone's phone. You cannot have your phone uncompress the file, select the things that have changed, and recompress it. Like the compression itself, when we generate the zip file, it's about like 2 weeks work on a really big ass server, and that's not something a phone can do. So unfortunately, you need to download the whole package every time. But on the other hand, let's be honest, Wikipedia has now almost 7 million articles. It is unlikely that the history of Switzerland or mathematics or basic geography facts will change. It is sort of annoying if there's an election or a football World Cup and you're missing the last results. But, you know, from an encyclopedia point of view, it's probably not something that is major because you got the newspapers for that. But for like general knowledge, you know, who are those philosophers or what is the capital of Mauritius? You're fine. You'll be fine in 10 years from now. So, and that's what actually we see with our users. Most of the time, they do a yearly update. We provide monthly updates for everyone, but people that actually have one, they go once a year and they're fine.
Okay. And it's read-only, just to be very clear for everyone. It's not something that you can engage back to. It's only read-only. Okay.
It is read-only, and that's a bit technical as well again, but actually you do have websites, mostly like to learn coding, where you can actually type your answers, and this we capture. So you can play games, for instance, like this, I think that's called FET, that's been developed by University of Colorado, which are little games of chemistry and physics. And, you know, it's kind of interactive. And this you can totally use on Kiwix. It does work. If it does not need to fetch information at the server level, then you're good and you can download that game as well.
Okay.
But for the Wikipedia parts, yes, it would not save the results.
Okay. And are there any unexpected, so you've rolled this all out, it's been going for quite a long time. Are there any unexpected uses? I mean, what were the original uses that you envisaged? And then what's happened? What have you come across as a result?
I actually do have a whole slide deck of amazing pictures. I wanted to show them at the end because it's kind of like light-hearted.
Okay, well,
so let's go straight into the you know, how it works, what's the magic, and then we'll go to the pictures.
Great. Right. So I'm going to put
using my screen here. So this is the library in English, but you can actually get any language, not any, but lots of language. And then those are the websites that we have. So in English, there's 1,000 of them. And there's actually probably more if you look into it. So PHP manual, for instance, would be something to learn PHP because we got lots of coders, that want the thing. So the initial website, and I'll show you more clearly a little bit after. But that will be the thing. And we do have Wikipedia. So you'll notice immediately that we changed the front page of Wikipedia, because Wikipedia tends to have that, article of the day, picture of the day. But when you're in a scenario where people are offline and they come back every 6 months, the article of the day felt a little stale. So we decided to go straight to the basics and picked up, whatever it is that Wikipedia does best, which is, offer content. And here we go. Once you're there, you actually have the real thing. You click on your link, you go to science disambiguation page, mathematics. Let's go to math. I love math. Do I love math? No, I don't. But mathematical chemistry, and so on and so on. I mean, I could go forever, because there's literally 6.7 million articles in this single file. And just so you know, before anyone asks, those 6.7 million articles will take up about 100 gigabytes. And as of 2021, an average Android phone has 128 gigabytes of memory storage. So you literally can put the entirety of Wikipedia on a random phone, like very average. But let's go see other pieces of content.
So, and just to be clear then, so Kiwix is a kind of a platform or a library of different knowledge suppliers, like Wikipedia, but also like, as you've just shown us, other ones.
Yes, we do not create content. We shamelessly steal it. Well, it's not stealing, because it's freely licensed, so it's meant to be distributed to others. But we do not create any content. What we may create is a better way to read it. But at the end of the day, you can get any website that exists through Kiwix, and Kiwix is merely a reader. And there's no plan to change that, because we don't speak that many languages, and it's just easier to, people will create content to that best, and then we just follow suit.
So it's like an offline publisher of the books or the knowledge spaces you need.
Yes, to some extent, because we store them on our software, on our servers, and then if you have Kiwix on Android or on iOS or on your computer or desktop, then you need to download it from our servers. But at the end of the day, it's very much like Chrome or Firefox. You use it as a browser. First and foremost, use it as a browser. So here's Medline, for instance. This is the Medline that you would see at the National Library of Medicine, if it still exists. Very much the same website. We didn't create this. We just provide the copy, but it is browsing for all intent and purpose. It is browsing. There's nothing different there. So this is interesting because, and that's where I get into the tech. Normally, when you create a zip file, you need to actually write the program that will make a copy. And what I mean by saying write the program is that each website is different, and you need to train that program, the scraper, to recognize what a wiki is. So the technology we use to make a copy of Wikipedia is not the same as FreeCodeCam. Those are two different scrapers. And it needs to be clear that it's not an easy endeavor. So it takes a bit of work. Otherwise, we'd have copied the entirety of the internet. But unfortunately, we need to go one by one. The good news is that when you do one Wikipedia, because we're looking at the media wiki structure, then you can do all wikis. So we have all the Wikipedias in every single language, which is probably a good thing to look at. I'll show you. Here's Wikipedia, and we can also do all the other wikis. So you can see there's like 1,200 different types of Wikipedias, all languages that you can think of. And at the end of the day, it's always there because we get the technology for wikis.
Okay, and then just to unpack that. So with Wikipedia, you can have both the ones with illustrations and the ones without, just to make the file less or less weighted. But if you want commons as such, you might break your device because it's got so much much heavier from a data point of view. Yeah.
Yes. So we we work with people that have low connectivity, and when they do have connectivity, it's probably low bandwidth or limited storage. So we found out that in lots of instances, at least on the wikis, because we started there, it's just as smart to provide two versions of the same file. So sometimes they're about the same size, but not always. And one has the images and one does not. And when you remove the images, because they're so information heavy in terms of code, you save about 50% of space. So, you know, that's you go from 110 gigabytes to about 50. So that's a lot. That's a lot of, you know, saves. So that's.
But then it's reasonably kind of dense rather than as light as with illustrated images. Yeah.
Yes, probably. But then, you know, I'm not saying that images are not important. They certainly are. But at the end of the day, Wikipedia is, I mean, like, you know, nobody would complain that the big Britannica books lacked images. What you wanted to have was access to the information.
But how does that work then for some things that are very like a video resource? So say Khan Academy, which is.
So in that case, we use that very smart thing that I call common sense, and we do only video included. I'll show you actually, it's a very good example. Thank you for bringing that up. I'll show you what it does, because we can do YouTube. So what we do when we go to YouTube, which is obviously very video heavy, we simply just grab the whole channel. The sound on your hand, so I've got it on my hand. So you see like the video, you got that lady teaching English to whoever it is. Actually, Voice of America does it in a dozen languages, so we picked up each individually. So that's Voice of America learning English in English, but you can have Voice of America learning English in Amharic, for instance, that we also have. And we can do any YouTube channel. It's a little bit more complicated in some cases because the licensing is not obvious, but you know, that's a side problem. I'll show you also something that is interesting, is the comparison between the real thing and the copy. So, oh, that doesn't work. Oh, it does work. So that is a website that is called 100 Rabbits, and that is what it looks like. They have article until December 2024, and you click on it. That's what you would see. Now I would go to the original website, which I smartly saved in my bookmarks, and you realize it's exactly the same design. Like it's very much the same copy, and we didn't run it in January for some reason, or not yet, because we should have. But what I mean is that we get the integral copy and the look and feel again, even if it's for a random, semi-random entry, it does work, and we copy it integrally. I'll go back to my library, and I think it's pretty much it. I don't want to overload people with information. So what I want you guys to take away from that is that Kiwix allows you to copy any website and make it available for download and to keep with you anywhere, anytime. And now we'll actually change to the anywhere, anytime slideshow. Which is here. Hopefully you can see that. Can I begin it?
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. So that's when we go into use cases. So who needs Kiwix? Well, turns out everyone. So as I said, we started, it was very much like on the one side, there was someone whose mom was in Europe, but in the countryside, and the connectivity wasn't good. So he was a bit of a nerd. Emmanuel, my colleague, was a bit of a nerd, and he said, okay, I'll make something that works offline. And then there was Renaud, who was based in Mali at the same time. He had a contract with USAID, and they wanted to export Wikipedia to schools in rural areas. So those were like kind of like two use cases we started. This picture, on the other hand, is Queen Elizabeth Island in the Canadian Arctic, sorry. Has been taken.
Canada had Antarctica, but anyway.
Close enough. It is cold and far away. And this picture has been taken by a airline pilot. So the gentleman wrote to us saying, hey, here are a couple of cool pictures. I'm actually using Kiwix every day during my work, because when I see features, then I browse Wikipedia and I try to recognize them and I play that little game. So definitely that gentleman would be connected 95% of his time, but he still has situations where he needs to be accessing offline content. And this, Ayla, is actually Antarctic or Antarctica. This is a base. I don't want to say something wrong. There are many bases, but there's one in particular who has that project where they need to be far away from everywhere to look for neutrinos. And what they do is they do have satellite connectivity, but because it's polar system, they only have connectivity 5 hours a day. So for the rest of the time, they actually do need to have offline resources. So they use it for Wikipedia, but also for Stack Overflow in case they need some coding resources and material, and they need to quickly look for answers. And they also have movie nights, they told me, and they use Kiwix for that a lot because, movie nights are very long in the Antarctic, I guess. But in terms of like supposedly very connected places and actually not so connected, it's a very good example because we have, and this one obviously I will not have any picture to show, but nuclear research facilities from the military in France and the US that we know for sure, and probably others, are actually using Kiwix because in their case, they do not want to be connected. They really want to be offline because, Russians or anything else. So they actually reached out and they said they're using Kiwix and they like it. So that was interesting. So you can be very high tech and very disconnected. You can also be very low tech and very disconnected, which is, more the usual case. So that's my good friend Azog in Benin. And he's a Wikipedia evangelist. And, when you try to evangelize people with something they cannot see, you use Kiwix. Because for them, in the place, Wikipedia is Kiwix. There's no difference. That's the only way they will ever access it. So he goes from school. He's actually a teacher, so that's easier for him to go from school to school. But he uses it for his teaching, and he shows, things around. He shows to people, and he really, really deploys in his country. That gentleman was actually a Peace Corps volunteer in Malawi, and again, he explains how to use Kiwix. The thing is that you've got lots of schools who get refurbished computers, but without the internet, there's only so many things you can do with it. So Kiwix comes in very handy. Another use case that we'd never thought about was prisons. So in prisons, you got lots of time, no internet access, and yet hopefully you will get out of prison at some point and probably do not want to go back there. So what a lot of programs do is actually teach inmates a job. And one of the teaching programs that works the best, at least in recent years, was teaching them how to code, like becoming web developers or even, regular developers.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously you can have access to computers, but you cannot go on the internet because just in case you would want to ask someone to share someone else. So what you do is that you use Kiwix a lot, they use Kiwix a lot. And that's why when I showed the list of resources we had, I don't know if you saw the titles, but a lot of them were computer related because those are usually free to access. They're very, very openly licensed and they're very much in demand. And that's why it's interesting because we had a donor, and that's a legitimate question, come to us and say, yeah, but what's the impact? And when you're offline and you say, well, what's the impact of the internet? What's the impact of having internet? How do you measure that? It's a nice rhetorical question, but it still doesn't answer what they were asking. But in prisons, you can actually see the difference between people who got an indication in prison and do not come back, and people who did not get an indication and actually do come back. And the saving we bring to society just by making it available offline for them to learn and get out of jail free is about 42 million a year, just from the small number of people that get into those programs and will never go back to jail. And I can tell you that our budget is far from $42 million.
Yeah.
So definitely we're doing good there, and there's an impact, and that's actually one we can measure reliably.
And which yes. Is that a specific country that saving is?
No.
Or is it
yes and no. You would be surprised to know that prison conditions in Russia are not the same as are in the US or Europe. So we're talking mostly Europe, US, but we've seen Kiwix being used in other places. It really depends, actually. It really depends on the population and the local programs. In the US, They're a little more advanced on the job searching thing, but we're also being deployed in Belgium, France, Germany, Switzerland, and it really depends on like what they want to do. Like in some cases, it's actually teaching inmates how to read, because that's something that needs to
Yeah.
be done. And it's kind of cute because they say, yeah, we leave access after class, and inmates come back and they use Wikipedia to show each other where they're coming from, like which place they're from, which I
Wow.
thought was kind of neat.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Next one is obviously refugee camps. So what we do is actually we do not deploy ourselves. There's no Kiwix person on the ground in Lebanon in that case. We would be using Kiwix and showing them how to do. It's really like the software is here. It's free for the taking, and folks, association, foundations, whoever takes it and does it and uses it for their own purpose. So Taki, for instance, is based and active in Lebanon and Syria, and they teach basic computer skills to kids, and that's what they do, and that they do it very well actually. Tons of kids, particularly in that region, very, 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 very useful. I mentioned earlier that the software is free for the taking, so that's what exactly ISOC Kyrgyzstan did. They took Kiwix and they installed it on small Raspberry Pis, and they created the Ilimbox. And Kyrgyzstan, as you certainly know, is a very mountainous region, and they had a plan to connect everyone. Obviously, when you're in the city, it's kind of easy, but when you need like 2 days on horseback in order to get to a village, it's not that easy. So what they did is create that Ilimbox, and they deployed it in villages. So you have everyone has their cell phone, and they can connect to the box, and they don't need to download anything. They don't need to download Kiwix onto their phone. The box will be there and will broadcast the content that they installed on it, and they can use it anywhere, anytime, without having to worry.
So they use that local area network that is created by the Raspberry Pi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is in Ladakh, so another very mountainous, very remote area in northern India. And another cool story that I hear. So it's an organization that uses computers to teach English, and then they hope that the locals would work in tourism and work with foreigners. And so this is the picture when they first showed Kiwix to the locals. And the first thing they went to look at is like, does the internet talk about my place? So they went straight looking for Ladakh. And that was pretty cool. And they were like, oh, we're actually known. The world is talking about us. And it made it very, very real for them that they had to learn, because the world knew about them and probably the world wanted to come. So it was a very powerful teaching tool for them to come with and to engage. And people were very happy. And I've seen that in lots of places actually, where like people go first and like, does anyone talk about me? So for you, for instance, WikiAfrica, where you do your editing contest and things, I think it's very important to really engage with that part, because people love to create and tell stories about themselves, where they live, and they also love to read about it. So the local content.
Actually, in Africa, it's kind of interesting because they normally just have like the veneer, like so people get a bit upset actually when we do that, when we say like, look up, where you're from and how do you view that in comparisons to say this example of
comparisons are not good
in France kind of thing. And
people
get like, but it is a motivation, because people go like, okay, well, you can actually change this. So you can add information about your place. So it is a good motivator for getting people involved. But
there's a way to present it, but definitely it's motivating.
Yes.
Here was in Ecuador. So what they did in Ecuador is that they switched. I don't know exactly what was the reason, but basically all CRT screens, the big TVs, the big ass TVs with a tube, were being decommissioned across the country because they couldn't catch up with the new technology or the way like TV was being broadcast anymore. So they repurposed them to use as offline PDAs, as they call them, again with a small Raspberry Pi, and they use the TV screens as computer screens where people could go and browse in the countryside again. So very much Indian rural regions, and they went to local community centers so everyone could come in and check things out and see. So that picture, as you can see, was taken about 4 years ago during COVID, but it's still there. It still works. I mean, the thing is pretty resilient. It works forever. But you can also have folks in rich countries. So in that case, in France, actually, where they're teaching older people who probably don't have that much money or that's not super connected to use computers. So very basic training, but very, very efficient. They say, okay, you can get Wikipedia on your thing or anything else. So very, very good. Here, those are medical students in Cambodia, because if there's one thing that is essential, is that knowledge is kind of fresh. And in a lot of places, books are either expensive or old. I mean, and usually because they're expensive, you tend to keep them for super long and they become old, but they also become stale. Whereas when you can download that content, the same content, and we work with the Wiki Project Med Foundation to provide a subset of Wikipedia that is, well, expanded subset, that is medical centered. Turns out that we have tons of medical students that are using it because it's fresh knowledge and it's good quality knowledge. So really, really works well. Now we're going to the more edgy cases. Yes, it is. There's a program that's called Sticks for Freedom or something like this. Basically, what they do is that they repurpose old flash drives, and they fill them up with all the information that they can. And when I say information, I clearly say, and when I say they, I'll come to it. This is in South Korea, actually. Despite the guy's face, this is happening in South Korea. And what they do is that they will bring those sticks over into North Korea. The Chinese-North Korean border is actually very porous, and there's a lot of traffic happening there. And what they do is that they smuggle those sticks into the country and they lose them on the street. And obviously, in North Korea, when you find a flash drive on the street, you're very curious. And you will look into it because people do have computers, no matter what you can say. They run their own version of Linux, actually, which is called Red Star, because it makes sense. But Kiwix will work on Linux. So they open this, and what they find will be the Korean Wikipedia, which will tell them it's not propaganda, it's just the real world. But it's so much fresher than any propaganda they would get that people really get into it. But they will also have, like, movies, TV series, things like this to show the outside world. And that is the best propaganda in the sense that, it's the real world. It's real information. So they smuggle about 20,000 sticks a year, which is kind of a big number. And they use it to reach out to the population, and mostly the elites, because those are the people that run the show. But to show them that there's something happening outside the country, and probably at some point they will want to change that. And that was actually my last picture. Okay, I'll go back to one that is a little cooler. Which one do I like? This one, yeah, it's too much. Okay, let's go to the first one. That's pretty much it for a world tour of Kiwix use cases. I hope it was fun.
Yeah, it's fantastic, Stephane. Thank you. I think it really shows, like, I think most people, or at least in my kind of view, people, and maybe it's my context, but a lot of people think, oh, it's for kids at school in rural areas like Africa, and I think it just shows how powerful offline can be, and that it's a choice, so there's like a percentage, it's something like 20% of the UK is offline, and that's a choice that's being made, not a limitation, or not a challenge, or not a resource issue. That's purely because people don't want to be online. And this is another way of bridging that kind of information, or, allowing people, as you said, in the nuclear, why you need the information, but you don't want to have the access. So there's all different reasons. And thanks for sharing that with us. I think also the last thing I just wanted to unpack is, obviously you can access Kiwix kind of like online in order to download whichever one of the things that you have there, like the platforms, and you choose the platform to download. But do you want to walk through the different options? It's not just that easy, as like I download it and then I walk off into, the Namib desert kind of thing. What is there, like, yes, you can, but are there other kind of ways of ensuring, that it gets onto something like the Raspberry Pi, or that's for a larger community? I think it depends on intention. Yes, like what you're downloading it for.
Yeah. So it's an interesting question, because there are very different categories of people that need to either access that content or to distribute it. So you got individuals, and those, they will find a way to get access to that content. They actually don't need us to a large extent, because they have friends, and we have. I think last year we had like one download from Eritrea, and then a guy was reaching out for the university and saying, like, everyone has it, everyone's using Kiwix, thank you. And it turns out that like one enterprising person went to a cyber cafe, downloaded whatever they needed, and then they shared with their friends. So there's a lot. We tend to, particularly in Europe and developed world, we tend to think of the relationship to content as a very vertical thing. You connect and you download, but there is a horizontal element whereby people share. Very simply, they just share their content with their friends and circles, or they purchase it. In Cuba, there's a thing that's called the paquete semanal, which is a small hard drive that you can rent for a week and for $1, and it is loaded with movies, anything you want, including Kiwix, and you just take it and you share it with your neighbors, and it costs you $1. So it can be very enterprising. However, there are people, professionals, that run programs, and they have to work with, I don't know, the Fondation Orange in France, for instance, has 500,000 kids across all of West Africa, and they obviously won't go to every single one of them saying, hey, here's some content for you to use. So what they do is, and I have one here, is they have those little Raspberry Pis that they deploy in schools. So they actually build a school with all the material needed. I'll show you it again. So Raspberry Pi, this thing costs probably less than $100 to build. And you can put a lot of storage. You can put up to 1 terabyte of content on a single SD card. So that's huge. And what they do is they build the school, the whole thing, come with solar panels, and they bring the Raspberry Pis and small, cheap Chinese tablets, which are actually cheaper to import than books. And also people pay a lot more attention to them than books, weirdly enough. Yeah. And then they got the whole school material. And in that case, they come to Kiwix, they say, okay, I need this curriculum from this country to be available offline, and I need to run on a Raspberry Pi. So here there's a bit of installation process to make sure that it runs the OS and whatever. So that's our technical part. But that's how we work with partners. They tell us, we need this to work offline, and we want to broadcast it to a bunch of people. And that's where we help.
Brilliant. All right, so that's basically all of so if people have a specific use case, they can come to you. And how do they access you? I mean, we put the website up, but is there any kind of connection, any specific direct connection you want to give people?
They can reach out, send an email to Stephane@kiwix.org, or hello@kiwix.org, or contact@kiwix.org. We make sure that we're reachable. So very much the usual way. There's a contact form on the website. That's probably the easiest. That goes straight to our inbox. Everyone knows where to reach back within the day normally, and then we talk.
Okay, well, that's brilliant. Is there anything else that you think that other people need to know about the big, vast offline space, or anything that hasn't been mentioned? Is there?
No, I think the magic and the technology is less important than knowing that it's not a limitation, and that everyone actually will be offline at some point, even those that think they cannot be. Like, think disaster recovery, for instance. We had lots of people reach out from the US last fall when they had all the floodings. So we worked and provided some offline resources for I wouldn't call that survival, but at least recovery. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely it's more like offline will happen at some point to everyone. So be ready.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just obviously there's disaster and there's those kind of unexpected things, but there is also, as we become more worried about resource, where energy is coming from, all of those kind of elements. There's all those things to think about. I mean, in Africa, electricity is not a given. It doesn't always come on when you want it to. So it's good to have backups as well as anything else. Yeah.
I agree.
Brilliant. Thanks, Stephane. Thanks so much for joining us. And thank you, everybody, for watching this. And we'll speak about this and other aspects of the Wikimedia world on WikiAfrica Hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was very good.
Great.
WikiAfrica Hour is a production of Wiki in Africa that supports the development of the Wikimedia movement across Africa. We value your suggestions on social media for the topics you want to discuss. We look forward to your participation next month at the same time and on the same channel. Hit the subscribe button to stay open and up to date, and follow WikiAfrica on social media. See you at the next WikiAfrica Hour.